Okay, you all are now live. Have a great meeting.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Eileen McMinn, Chair of the Homeless Initiative Advisory Committee, and I would like to welcome you to our meeting on Friday, January 28th, 2022. All committee members, staff, and guests are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience as we work through committee meetings a bit differently. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible. Sorry, I was reading Brian's message, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link of the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. We also have an option for the public to listen and comment live by phone. The telephone number is 855-925-2801. The meeting code is 9836. For those of you with us here today, welcome. The committee members who are participating here today virtually are Joelle Steininger, Jennifer Teague, Sarah Copley, Amy Hobson, Lance Crawford. I've got a thing here that says 3 others. Brian, do we have other committee members here? Or Christina?
So Maggie Slocum is here from Helpmate as proxy for Tamia Jones. And as of and David Nash just joined us, so we do have a quorum.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will let's see. I will call the roll and we will mark who is and who isn't here. David Bartholomew, Sarah Copley.
Hi, it's Sarah Copley and I'm here.
Copley, I'm sorry. Lance Crawford.
Here.
Jason Desai. Elvia Diaz. And we have Maggie Slocum for Tamia Jones.
Good morning. Yes, I'm here.
Eileen McMinn, I'm here. Tim McEllier is not here. David Nash is here.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay. Randy Stout. Joelle Steininger.
Here.
Jennifer Teague.
Here.
Did you catch Amy Hobson? Because I know she's here.
Did I? I'm sorry. I checked her before I asked her. So
I'm
okay,
here.
sorry. Okay. We've got you on record then being here. We do have a consent agenda and we do have a quorum. We do have a consent agenda which consists of the minutes from the December 10th, 2021 meeting. Do we have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'm Joelle Steininger.
Okay. Is there a
And
second?
I second.
Okay. We also have to do the vote by roll call. So I will go through and I will only call the people who are present. I hope that's acceptable. Sarah Copley,
Yes, support.
Lance Crawford,
Yes.
Amy Hobson,
Yes.
Eileen McMinn, yes. David Nash. David, are you listening?
I'm listening. Just having a hard time with my mute button today, but my answer is yes.
Okay. Did I call Maggie? Maggie Slocum?
Also, yes.
Okay. Jennifer Teague,
Yes.
Joelle Steininger?
Yes.
Okay. So the consent agenda passed. The next item on the agenda, by the way, I don't think I'm seeing everybody. I just have a message here that says 5 others. So if I miss somebody, or if somebody raises their hand and I don't see them, somebody please let me know. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the 2022 point in time count and new homeless info dashboard, and the staff will present that. Emily, Brian, Eric, and Cameron.
Emily, you want to jump in on the point in time count?
Sure, I'll give you all a quick update and then glad to turn it over to other folks at the city who have some info to share. So point in time count is behind us, I'm happy to say. Point in time count happened on Tuesday night. Went really well. I think, I believe we shared this update at the December meeting, but this year we did the count a little bit differently in that traditionally it's been the last Wednesday in January. This year we moved it to Tuesday in order to be able to count folks at Haywood Street on Wednesday, since that's such a hub of folks who come to a single location. So we're able to connect with people there. So Tuesday night sent teams out to do the street count. The other difference this year was that we did a dedicated youth count. So that was a HUD request, HUD encouragement this year. So major thanks to Sarah Dickerson at ELIDA for leading that process. I think that will be really useful data to us. It certainly seems to me like our population is trending younger than we have seen in the past. So it'll be good to get actual data around that. We had 48 volunteers on Tuesday night, which was wonderful. That's more than we had last year, even though, you know, we are still in a pandemic. So really great to have that level of community support. A lot of those folks were staff at homeless service agencies, which is really wonderful that they were able to do that in general, that they were willing to do that, but also really improves, I think, the quality of our data collection because they're folks who have that expertise and know a lot of people out in the community already. Data are still coming in, so it will be a bit before we have actual data to share. Typically, that report is due to HUD in April, so we will continue to keep you all updated as we collect that data and process that through HMIS and have some reports that we're able to share. I certainly do anticipate an increase in the number of folks who are unsheltered based on the data that I have back so far, which is not the complete data set. So we'll continue to keep you updated, but overall, I think our methodology was good. I think the count went really well, and it'll be great for us to have a new data set to help inform our strategies over the coming year. Brian, do you want to add anything to that?
No, it's just a really strong showing of volunteer support. Again, we would have had more, but you know, day of, people who either were COVID symptomatic or in the previous 24 hours had tested positive for COVID. So we had some people sort of fall out at the last minute. We did a series of new volunteer training sessions. I scheduled them out over the course of the 8 or 9 days with many options, so new volunteers could be able to access at convenient times. We did have plenty of new volunteers this year, but also folks that have been point in time participants many times previously. Joelle, you're a glutton for punishment. I know you say you feel compelled to do it every year, so I feel the same way. And as Emily mentioned, teams from Sunrise and VA and ABCCM and Homeward Bound. It was really robust volunteer support this year. So, and we've already got a list going of things that we know we need to do better next time. It's always a work in progress. And we got some great feedback on a couple of things from new volunteers. It's interesting how a fresh set of eyes on something can bring a perspective that nobody, even the old hands, has really thought about before. So we got some great feedback from a couple of new volunteers. It's like, yep, that's right on. We need to do that next year. So, but overall, I think it went well, and I'm also glad it's behind us.
Okay, any questions?
Well, I guess we can, Emily, unless there's anything you want to add, we can move on to Eric and Cameron. Madam Chair, if that's all right with you.
Mhm. Okay, it's for Eric and Cameron now.
Awesome. Hi, my name is Cameron Henshaw. I'm a performance analyst in the Office of Data and Performance. We're a fairly new office if you're not familiar with us. One of our big goals is to make it easier for folks in the community to know what's happening at the city, as well as what's working, what's not working, what we're doing about it. So a big emphasis on getting data and information out into the community in accessible and understandable ways. So this dashboard that we've been working on is part of our overall strategy for connecting the community with information about what's happening in the city. So we're really excited to partner with Emily and Brian on this dashboard, which shows the 2021 point in time count data. This is also kind of a first step. We have plans in the future for getting more performance measure data out there, as well as updating this dashboard when the 2022 count data is available as well. So I'm going to share my screen. And this is a bit of a sneak peek because it is not yet up on the website. We're getting it up next week. But we wanted to go ahead and show you all a bit of a sneak peek. So it looks like you can see that on my, I'm sharing my screen. So this is the dashboard that we have. At the top, we have some big highlights of the big numbers that people are really interested in. The total number of people who are recorded as homeless, as well as the number of people who are sheltered versus unsheltered. Below that, we have a line graph showing the point in time count totals since 2010 through 2021. This graph is really interesting because, despite the fact that Asheville's population is growing and has grown since 2010, the total for the point in time counts has actually, has actually remained pretty much the same, really fluctuating right between 500 and 600. So I think that's some really useful information to get out there for people to kind of understand. We also have this chart, which is a breakdown by race of the data. It's always really important to highlight. This little paragraph underneath it is pointing out that American Indians, Alaska Natives, Black/African-American people, and multiracial people are all overrepresented in the homeless population compared to their population in overall Asheville. It's always important to highlight some of those disparities as well. So we wanted to kind of put some of these big highlights of information up on this dashboard, but we also wanted to make it so that people who are interested in looking at the data in different ways would have a place where they were able to do that as well. So we have this button at the bottom, which is click to explore all data. And that doesn't show up because it's not the window. Let me share that real quick. Oh, there we go. So this is a Google Sheet that has the data broken down by in a lot of different ways. We have totals, age, veteran status, chronically homeless, ethnicity, race, and gender. And each of these tabs has a bit of context information, trying to help make the data more accessible, also giving a bit of the story behind it, what could be contributing to kind of different disparities, just more information to ground the data that we have in. So we really hope that that is useful to people who want to take a deeper look into the point in time count data. Yeah, so overall, we hope that this is a useful tool for the community, and we want to keep on building on this and updating it as more data comes in. And we're really excited about launching it. That's kind of all I have. I'm happy to take questions.
I do have a couple of questions if you don't mind. Do you mind to scroll up just a little bit to the chart above? And this is just a question, is the city planning, because there's additional numbers above that you have there, like the unsheltered, do you plan to do any kind of tracking of that, or is it really just the total number with the one line? because I think it would be interesting to see what the unsheltered looks like as well across that historical piece. Maybe there's a different way to look at that data.
Yeah, so I think some of the thought process behind this dashboard was trying to get really the kind of the really big pieces really accessible and really understandable. We kind of had a lot of choices of, there's a lot of data and a lot of ways to look at it, and making those choices of what actually to put on the front dashboard is, I wanted to put everything at first, which was it did not work. It was kind of a mess. So I think, yeah, Eric, what about you? I feel like you.
No, I think it's a good question, and it's always by the way, I'm Eric Jackson. Cameron and I are together in the Office of Data and Performance. There's always kind of this balance between overwhelming people with way too much information and thereby failing to communicate, and of course not giving enough information so people can't really figure out what's going on. So this is kind of the first step in making this information available, picking basically 3 things that we want to highlight on the first look for everybody, letting them dig in a little bit. As you point out, the spreadsheet doesn't have all the historical data for all of those breakdowns. I don't know exactly where the quality of that data starts to go down a little bit. That's an Emily question. But again, so between now and when we launch the next one, we're taking the performance measures that are reported annually to Housing and Urban Development and adding to this and starting to report some of those out as well, hopefully on a quarterly basis. And we can kind of go back and visit and revisit some of this and figure out what might be worth adding. I think partly just on the, hopefully people will start using this and the questions can drive some of the decisions in the future about where we can usefully do things. And I think there's always, as Cameron said, if you're a data person, there's always a temptation to kind of say, and here it all is, go play. And so what we've really tried to do is see this as a first step rather than a final result.
Sarah has a question.
Thanks, Madam Chair. This is a question for Eric and Cameron. What is I know you're just getting into this, but do you have a planned distribution for the dashboard? There are a lot of local and regional funders who would be interested in this sort of dashboard collapsing of data. It's really easy to understand, particularly how you have the demographics. So I'm just curious about the plan for sharing it.
So it will be, I don't know that, and this is something we'd want to do together with Emily and Brian. There'll be a press release going out next week, and this will be embedded on the Homeless Initiative page on the city website. So it's available for anybody. I don't know that we've planned a lot of promotion beyond that, but would actually love to do that if we can. Again, I would want to let Brian and Emily kind of lead on that piece, but we would be delighted to support.
Yeah, Sarah, I'm happy to coordinate with you and with our Cape office and see if we can get something. If you've got a specific distribution list, of folks that would be essential to get it to.
Yes.
I'll connect with you after the meeting today, and I'll connect with our Cape office, and we'll map out a strategy on how to do that. But I think it's a great idea.
Oh, great. And I don't want to rush things. You obviously have a plan, and that's great just to work within that. But it's really vital information.
Well, you and I have talked about getting this kind of information out to the philanthropic community as well. And so, yes, we need to do that.
I also saw your question in the chat of, is the breakdown by race based on the 2021 count or the average through the years? So that is based on the 2021 count. And I'm making a note to myself because just adding that in the title would make that clearer. So that's a great point, and I'll make sure that's clear as well. Which is why it's great having many people's eyes on this sort of thing.
Well, thank you all for doing it. So our committee, I just did some rudimentary math with those percentages, just with our equity lens. Black or African American people identify as 23% of the homeless population. That's higher than we estimated last year. So that's really important to know. Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Okay,
I'll just add, if there are no other questions, a couple things. One, thanks to Jen and Sarah for your input on this. This is exactly why we wanted to sort of preview this with you all, with HIAC for input. And also, I want to say a big thanks to Eric and to Cameron, who have worked really hard on this. I think for me, I know you guys have heard me say this, but the longer I'm at the city, the more of a data nerd I become. And so I am excited to have partnership from real data people who know how to work with this kind of thing and communicate it out to folks. So we are definitely on the same page and hoping that this is just the beginning of being able to put a lot of information out on our website so that folks do have that as they're trying to understand homelessness in our community and also trying to make decisions around that. Eric mentioned that we'll be adding some other metrics. So, we will report on system performance measures to HUD in the next couple of months, and we will include that data. So we want to build out beyond the point in time count, but recognizing that the point in time count is important for us. It's the only comprehensive data set that we have about the homeless population in our continuum of care. So I think this is kind of our anchor, but wanting to build out from that. And so again, just really appreciative of Eric and Cameron for all of their work around this and just their interest in it and willingness to partner with us.
Well, I was just going to say, sort of back at you, it is a lot of fun to partner with a division that is just really excited about getting the information out there in an accessible form. So it's been fun and will continue to be fun.
And I'll add that Eric and when Jonathan was in Emily's position, and I had conversations about doing exactly this sort of thing beginning 3.5 years ago. So, and they were probably happening before that too, Eric, before I got here. And so this has been a long, long process. And Eric and his team, they finally able to actually get it in the works, and we are really excited and just thankful for their efforts on this. So, long time coming.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the low barrier shelter update with Emily.
Thank you. So as you know, we are continuing a planning process around that. I'll say quickly that the shelter operation at the Ramada currently is winding down. We are slated to be fully out of that location by the end of March. So working really proactively right now to get folks into some kind of positive exit, looking at how we can help people reconnect with family. A number of people have already moved out into permanent housing. So some really good outcomes already, but working hard to get that shelter responsibly wound down over the next couple of months. Beyond that, big picture, we are partnering with Buncombe County and with Dogwood Health Trust to facilitate a community planning process related to this. We are specifically looking for some strategies around unsheltered homelessness. So recognizing that folks are unsheltered because we don't have the shelter that is able to best meet their needs. So really wanting to focus on a response to unsheltered homelessness. We're currently drafting an RFP to identify a consultant to lead that process and to develop an actionable plan. So the city will be publishing that RFP in the coming weeks, and we will be sure to send that out to you all, to the HIAC distribution list when that's finalized. We definitely intend to use HIAC as a primary partner, primary resource, both to gather your input and insight, and also to be able to share updates with the community. I would expect that this will be a common, maybe a standing agenda item going forward, so that we can really keep you informed and engaged in that process. But our first important step is just getting that RFP live to get the consultant underway. That's the update for me at the moment. I'm happy to answer questions, or Jen, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
I think you did a good job summarizing where we are.
Okay, any questions? If nothing else, the next item is the Human Relations Commission Houseless Working Group recommendations. I was asked, I guess at least 2 months ago now, by someone on the Human Relations Commission to present this to our group and ask if this is something that we would like to join with them in supporting. I think everybody's had time to look at this, and there's been plenty of information in the newspaper and so forth for anyone who is watching. And so there is not a motion here. Is this something that anybody on the committee wants to take action on or discuss?
Can we discuss?
I think we can discuss. Sure. And this has to do with the city's policy and or procedures or ordinance relating to camps and closing camps.
I was curious. I just went back from my notes before the meeting started. Thank you guys so much for Brian and Emily for organizing all of the notes. But I didn't see who it was signed by. I wasn't sure about the makeup of the group. I've done some people circles, but I'm wondering if anyone can speak to that or their involvement in homelessness.
Well, Kim might be able to speak to that better. I was, she's the staff liaison for that committee as well. I mean, it's analogous to us, as I understand it, with the city, probably not with the county. And it's their task is human relations, and they also have a committee which is directed, a specific subcommittee which is dealing with homeless issues. As I am finding out, most of the other commissions and committees on the city and county seem to also have a subcommittee which is discussing homelessness. And we should at least be aware of that. And since I'm going out, I'm not going to make any momentous recommendations here or anything else. But if they are doing things, it might, other people are dealing with these issues. It may at least be advisable to have some sort of communication with them and know what they're doing. It would be confusing, I think, to have different city commissions and committees making different recommendations to the same people. So, and I think that's what they were interested in, was having us join in that. We don't necessarily have to do that, but I guess the other question or two sub-questions would be, do we want to have some sort of communication with them? And secondly, is this an issue that we would like to investigate more and take a position on? Kim Roney has raised her hand.
So the question around who had signed on as members of the HRCA, I do have that if that information is desired.
Mm-hmm. Yes, please.
So it was passed with a 6-5 vote. It was signed on by the chair of the HRCA, Tanya Rodriguez, as well as Commissioners Mel Noyes, Will Overfelt, Davidson Jones, Veronica Coit, and Susie Chandler.
Okay. And Tanya was the one who called me. I'm sorry, the name just slipped my mind when I started this. But Tanya was the one who called me and asked to present it to this committee.
Thank you.
As liaison to that group and to this group, I also agree that communications between the Houseless Working Group and this body would be a good idea.
I agree.
I agree also.
We can, I mean, if nobody wants to take action on this recommendation from the Houseless Working Group, we could appoint somebody or ask somebody to communicate with them, set up some sort of a liaison. Is there anybody who would like to do that or be willing to do that?
I
Ricardo?
don't know if someone else might be interested in doing so, but from the CAPE department, I think we will be really excited to try to help and ensure this relationship grows. So we'll be more than happy to take the responsibility.
Okay, so you'll get in touch with somebody here and somebody there and get them together?
Sure, happy to.
Okay, we'll do that. We probably have to talk about appointment of a vice chair before you do that.
I would like to, excuse me, revisit. Oh, sorry, I didn't raise my hand.
That's okay, go ahead.
Okay. I would like to revisit your question, original question about us taking a position on this issue. I mean, you really need to. I personally think so. I mean, this is ongoing. It impacts our Code Purple, which is going to need to be more actively involved in. You know, at our December meeting, we were talking about procedures and, you know, not really discussing Code Purple until Jen brought it up, but we were having kind of some communication delays. So I defer to the staff. I don't know if this is, you see this as an issue we need to really discuss, because we haven't, but I'm curious to have their feedback.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, brought this to the attention of our legal department, since it involves, potential changes to ordinances and codes. Any committee is free to make any recommendation they like. I would leave this for the committee to decide. Human Relations, this particular committee, the Human Relations Commission, if there needs to be some communication between members of HIAC and that body, certainly that might be a good first step before a more formal recommendation. But I would leave this to the committee's wisdom to decide what action to take and just what process to follow from this point.
Understood. I think that's a great process. I just don't want to ignore it or have death by committee where we don't respond.
Agreed.
We could also, apparently, and I can't say that I totally understand this, our committees, the committees that we had are no longer able to meet because of COVID restrictions and the combination of the COVID restrictions and the city's need to give notice and the city's procedure for setting up these meetings or whatever. But apparently we can have a task force. So one possibility would be having a task force to look into this issue a little bit more in depth and report to the committee. Because I can't say that I'm at this point, I'm not any more knowledgeable about this issue than anybody who reads the newspaper. And quite frankly, it's been confusing because apparently there have been contradictory reports on what the procedures and ordinance also are. And if Emily is still here, I have, I've heard your name brought into this conversation as somebody who was responsible for changing the ordinance or whatever. And my response to that was, Emily is the person I would go to if I wanted to know what was going on. So I have found it very confusing. I did not take the initiative to totally investigate this by myself and find out exactly what the ordinance is and what needs to be done and so forth and so on. But I can tell you there's a lot of miscommunication going on out there and a lot of confusion about who's responsible for what. So I do think that this is something we should probably have somebody look into in a little more detail, and I guess we can also direct staff to do that, although I think staff probably feels like they have enough work to do, but they may have enough background to report on this to us. So Sarah has raised her hand.
If the committee feels comfortable, maybe our process can be, will follow through with what we agreed, that Ricardo will communicate
Okay.
the department and the committee and then report back. And I think also the realignment of boards and commissions that's happening will speak directly to this. I think, the interface of committees and advisory boards, having clarity on that will sort of clear this up in a couple months, hopefully, if we can move forward with that.
Okay. So has everybody agreed that our response to this at the moment is that we will ask Ricardo to initiate communication between the two commissions and pretty much go from there? Is that okay with everybody? I don't think we need to take a formal vote on that. Jennifer?
Just for clarity, who will there be a contact? Will there be a specific person that Ricardo will communicate with? And is then the next step going to be that person is responsible for meeting with the other committee? Are we giving just like he's going to start this process, or there's actually going to be steps that happen before our next meeting?
Sarah? Should we skip down to another item 7 and then come back to this? Okay, Sarah, would you be responsible for meeting with, communicating with Ricardo and meeting with, okay.
Yes, I will.
No, Sarah will take this on. Emily?
I just want to clarify real quickly that while I appreciate perspective that I have the power to change ordinances, that's not actually accurate. And so staff are not in that position. Just wanted to clarify that, and also to say that we appreciate the role of advisory committees. That's the function of advisory committees is to help advise policy and provide input to our policymakers who are elected officials. And this is, of course, a joint committee between the city and the county, so both city council and county commission. So I think the process that just my 2 cents is the process that you've outlined is right on. I think that's really effective. And again, just want to clarify that I'm not
I did tell everyone who brought that up that I didn't think you had the power or even would do that if you did. But I think it just shows the confusion that has arisen around that issue. And a lot of people called me to express what they thought about it. Okay, so we'll go on now to the Code Purple Steering Committee.
I'm sorry, Eileen, I had one other comment, and maybe this is for a future conversation. But Sarah, if you're going to be our liaison with the other committee, I also just wonder, because I did do a deeper dive, reviewed the ordinances, and when I read what was submitted to us for a conversation, I just didn't see any additional suggested alternative or option. And I just wonder if there's some opportunity for some conversation around that too. So not just a removal, but also recommending kind of another step. And maybe there's not, maybe we don't have any suggestions or comments, but just kind of thinking about that next step piece. And I don't know how you feel about that, or if you think that's appropriate.
Definitely. Do you think that would, I think that would result from our committees having conversations also, in developing a mutual agenda. We can all participate in that. At least I would hope.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Code Purple Steering Committee. Is that Dan Pizzo?
I think it's both Dan and me.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't
That's-
see you there. Okay,
That's okay.
Yeah.
Nancy Walton and
Yes.
Dan Pizzo.
Yes. All right, good morning. I'm Nancy Dixon Walton. I'm privileged to serve as the pastor at Trinity United Methodist, where there has been a lot going on these days on Haywood Road. So I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity to give some time to ask you to hear about what's been happening. And I'd like to ground us in something that I've read recently that I think is worth sharing. And I want to give full credit to another preacher sister, Barbara Brown Taylor, who brought this into my worldview. And she's quoting from another book, and it's all about beauty and justice, which I have never heard the two combined together. And I'm experiencing that in our space at 587 Haywood Road. The first premise of this book is that beauty prompts a copy of itself. When we see something beautiful, we want to snap a picture of it. If we're artistic, we might want to paint a picture of it or write a song about it, or we definitely want to share. You will not believe what I saw. This was absolutely beautiful. Makes you want to replicate it. I have seen that happen in the reversal. If you've never been in our space, the sanctuary, which is incredibly beautiful, is right above the fellowship hall in our church. And while our sanctuary, I know I'm biased, is absolutely stunning 1926 architecture with 25-foot stained glass windows, the beauty has been happening underneath in our fellowship hall, and it's almost been role reversals in those spaces. So the fellowship hall has become sanctuary, and sanctuary has become fellowship. And it keeps replicating in new ways every day that we have been hosting shelter. The poet Wendell Berry wrote that there are no unsacred places. There are only sacred places and desecrated places. And it's been my experience in conversations over the last 6 weeks with some of my unhoused neighbors that it is not good to not have a roof over your head, but that does not mean that you are not of sacred worth. And so this beauty has continued to replicate itself in ways that are funny to me. So the proper church parlor has become a dorm for women, and that church parlor furniture is going all over the bottom floor of the church, and I just absolutely love it. Beauty prompts a copy of itself. The second premise is that beauty is capable of moving us to do the hard work of repair. She says, Barbara Brown Taylor, that is, because once you have been touched so deeply by this beauty, whether it's in a flower or it's in a human face, it's difficult to resist engaging. It's difficult to resist engaging in the kind of justice that clears the way for more beauty to happen. That's what's happening in spaces at all Code Purple shelters. That's what's happening in spaces on the bus when people are getting to Code Purple shelters or hopping on a van because one shelter is full and we're communicating with another one in order to find bed space for people. It moves us to do this hard work of repair. And my sister preacher gave this beautiful analogy that we may see the first daffodil that comes up in the spring in our yard, and it's beautiful. And that's great. If you happen to see that beauty show up, let's say amongst a burnt area, and it is rising up among the ashes, it's also another kind of beauty to give witness to. And that's what prompts us to go, oh, there is something else happening here, and it is going to move us towards doing this hard work of repair and engaging in justice. That's the picture that I have seen happening around tables conversation with other mutual aid groups and service providers that has been happening in what we have called the Winter Shelter Steering Committee, which is really just a fancy way of saying we've asked people informally to come together so that we can have better conversation around providing for our sisters and brothers. The final premise is that beauty has this great power to remove us from thinking we're the center of the universe, or as my mama would have said, honey, if you wouldn't think it's about you or think other people think it's about you, you wouldn't always think about you, which was this crazy convoluted way of saying it's not about you, Nancy. So it has this beautiful power of decentering, unselfing, as it's called. That also is what's happening around the tables of conversation at the Winter Shelter Steering Committee, where we're saying, hey, how can we get the word out better? And then somebody came up with this great idea of we could put notice on the neon sign at the Civic Center. Hey, it's Code Purple today, in case you didn't know. Just beautiful, simple answers like that. And then sometimes an acknowledgement that there is no simple answer. And we've got to keep doing that work of repair to try to keep finding another more just answer. What I also want to acknowledge that I had no idea, because I'm coming at this from another direction, but my sisters and brothers who have been around these tables, who have been doing this work for decades, have said the conversation has shifted this year. I could give lots of reasons why I think that is. I'm sure you all around these boxes could also give that, but I just simply am asking us to acknowledge something has shifted in the conversation, and I am, in my words, my faith vocabulary, I am praying that we don't lose sight of that. I think part of what is at play is that the power of decentering has happened. We noticed how beautiful it is, how much easier it is to do the work of justice and see these beautiful sacred moments and spaces rise up. So with that being said, I'm going to pass the baton to my friend Dan Pizzo, who has put together a beautiful, truly beautiful representation of what this decentering conversation has looked like. So Dan, if you will share those slides that you have sent out.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Nancy. That was really powerful. So I'm just going to share my screen. And yeah, I think what prompted me to kind of try and put this together in kind of a diagram was this curiosity about this emergent and different kind of network that is developing. And Nancy did such a good job of kind of explaining it. So what I did is I used a little bit of data from our signing logs over the last 3 sessions that we've met as a steering committee, kind of doing this decentering work and this difficult work of repair. And using that data, I created a diagram in 3 different diagrams to show kind of how we're emerging and growing in a different kind of way with a shift. And so if you see here on the screen, I'm not sure if you can see the mouse, the purple elements are individuals that are attending. And the bigger the element is, the kind of more decision-making power in traditional sense that individual has. And they're linked to their organization. And what I've done to kind of flip the script a little bit is I've made the biggest elements, I've bullseyed them. They're people with lived experience. So they might be guests that are staying at the Code Purple, or they may be unhoused guests that are staying in other shelters around town. And what we want to do is make sure that they're centered and elevated in our approach. And I think that is part of the shift that we're seeing. So here you see, you know, in green are nonprofits, and in blue is kind of government agency, and churches are in red. But as we move to kind of 2 weeks down the line, this work is really attracting, this emergency action really is attracting different scopes, different areas of expertise, different kind of nooks and crannies of our community are coming out of the woodwork, because this is attractive work and there has been a shift. You know, we're moving from, you know, the classic competitive siloed work into finding solutions together and centering and elevating the voices of those that we're serving. And so here, you see that, elected officials, that's you, Kim Roney, were there in that session. And so we're starting to kind of grow. And this is our last one, and I won't pause too much after that, but you can see that it's really growing. And another thing that I've done is that those that have attended kind of the most meetings are closer to kind of the center of this work. And so we're just really excited to kind of see it continue to grow, and us continuing to keep that shift towards the work itself, rather than all the general things that can seep in, which is the centering of ourselves, as Nancy put it so well. I think this is just really difficult to kind of put into words. Those of you that have participated and those of us that are participating, I feel are part of something almost much greater than we've seen before. So thanks for letting me share those kind of diagrams.
Thank you, Dan. Finally, I want to give credit to my sister, Amy Cantrell, who in one of these conversations talked about the beauty of what's happening in a musical term, and she called it a chorus of mutuality. And it has been truly a chorus, because voices have been given opportunity to speak, to sing, and that is included people that we are serving alongside, the people that are being kept at the center, hopefully. So I first wanted to say that Trinity's winter shelter started Thanksgiving night before Code Purple could happen. I was out of town. I wasn't even around. Dan called Trinity Church. Somebody in the background, who happened to be one of his neighbors, said, "Is that Dan on the phone?" and heard his voice. And that began the chorus, at least for us. And they are the ones, along with people that they drew in to sing alongside them in the crazy chaos, to provide shelter, because that was a really cold week and proper Code Purple had not yet opened up. Proper Code Purple then opened up December 1st. We realized there are some critical gaps. We asked others into conversation with us to name critical gaps. So Trinity specifically, to the Code Purple winter shelter model, is offering space for people that don't fit into the single men's model, the single women's model, or we offer overflow. We offer safe and brave space for folks in the LGBTQ community, folks that have animals with them, families that do not want to be divided up. And I wanted to give just a few quick narratives and then have some time for Q&A. First of all, though, I wanted to say some of those folks have become part of the team that continue to serve. And that's the beauty of their witness. Again, my faith vocabulary using that word witness, but they truly reflect the beauty back to us because they want to come alongside and serve. And that happens every night, I know, in our space. I know that there has been a reuniting of a family, and that happened at the Thanksgiving model, where the dad had not been in the picture and they happened to meet up in the fellowship hall. Again, that's that reversal of sanctuary space becoming and happening downstairs in our fellowship hall. And that truly was a holy moment. I will name him, it's not his name, but let's say Andy is his name. He has this beautiful dog that I love. And we had this policy of not having pets in our space. So again, it's just throwing things up in the air because they need space. He actually has transportation, and I have heard about him going to pick up yet another resident who missed the bus in order to get to her job one day. That's the kind of community that's created by the folks that are staying with us. We have had at least 5 people be able to get into rehab programs, and that I'm learning, and I know there's much more wisdom around the table. I didn't quite realize how messy that is. That is messy work, and it is happening. I guess the final part of the course of mutuality that I want to name is inviting this group into holding the community accountable. And if you will allow us to also come back and speak into your space, how we can move forward to plan for next year. Because the conversations are happening, I am really hoping that we can, with your support, have this conversation much sooner in the year. I want to first of all say it doesn't matter to me where it happens, whether it's Trinity helping another community set up their space to do it. That's not the point. The point is, I think we're realizing beautiful things happen when we're willing to keep the main thing, keep the folks we're serving at the center, and have this beautiful singing around it and chorus of mutuality and messiness and dog crates and fellowship halls and church parlor furniture getting moved way far away from the church parlor. I am very grateful for the collaboration between, I love the Wendell Berry quote because I also don't believe that they're secular and that they're sacred. I just believe it's all beautiful. And I want to keep inviting that beauty into spaces across our city and across our county. So please help us keep moving the conversation forward because the job is too hard for us to keep staying in our own spaces and doing it. So with that being said, I'd be welcome to entertain any questions that you might have of us, of Dan or me, of the slides, anything.
Brian?
Yeah. First of all, Nancy and Dan, thank you for taking time and joining us today. I think there's a lot to say about what you're doing there, but it is often the gift of that absolutely radical hospitality that I think most institutional church has just forgotten to do. And the fact that you are doing it and you're seeing sort of the sacred space within your four walls kind of get flipped upside down. What you do when you're able to offer that radical hospitality. And so thank you for that. For a long time that the faith community in any city, certainly in Asheville, is one of the single largest untapped resources that we have. And so I am grateful to you for you stepping out on a limb and doing this. And I haven't had an opportunity to get out there and witness it firsthand, but I will. And I just wanted to offer my thanks for you guys taking the risk and doing it. And anything that I personally can do to help encourage other faith communities to do the same thing, I personally am committed to seeing that happen.
Yes, thank you for what you're doing and thank you for your presentation to us today. Any other questions, comments? Yes?
I wanted to say thank you because I was coming today with another ask, but it's already happened, which was some of our guests had asked for the potential to extend free bus transportation to and from the shelters. That just happened. Thank you. Brian, I'm assuming you were part of that conversation and whoever else was.
I'm working on several different pieces of it, yeah.
So thank you very much. And if you all have things that we can be working on, our lines are open and we're learning. We're not super great at this, but I don't want to miss out when I have long-term people coming and telling me things are different now because of the way the conversation is. So help hold us to that.
Yes.
Oops.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Thank you again. And we're all impressed with everything that you've been doing and thankful for your hard work. Next item on the agenda, Joelle has raised a hand. I'm sorry. Joelle.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you very much for what you're doing and for presenting to us. I'm a social worker at the VA Medical Center. I participated in the PIT count. I usually do, and just always, reminds me of the tremendous need, and I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Yes. You're getting a lot of thanks in the chat message. Okay. Emily, you raised your hand?
Yes, thank you. I'll echo that. Obviously, these guys have been really wonderful to work with, and it's really exciting to have an expanded conversation in our community. The last couple of years, Code Purple has been like me alone, panicked, calling people and asking them to do things. And so it's really exciting to have this new kind of community participation, and that has been great. I wanted to just give you all a very quick overview of current Code Purple status so that you're familiar with what's happening across our community. So first of all, there are several partners, including Trinity, who are working towards being open nightly. So not specific to the temperature being 32 or below, but being open nightly for the remainder of the winter. That's basically been happening in January, including tonight and tomorrow, which have already been called. We'll have 27 days of Code Purple in January. So again, working towards nightly winter shelter. I do feel really comfortable that we have right-sized capacity this winter based on the data that we have. So we have had beds available every night. I think I've been getting regular data updates from Salvation Army and ABCCM as well as Trinity, and I feel confident that we do have the capacity for folks who need shelter and are able to come into those spaces. And just a lot of partnership and coordination has been going on among all three of those locations. Trinity is working really hard to specifically fill a gap and not duplicate what's happening in other locations, so being a really good partner to those other folks. And just a lot of community-wide coordination. APD is giving rides to people to get to shelter. I think there's just a good kind of energy around what's happening. And again, just wanted to give you the update that I do think we have good capacity going forward.
Thank you again. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of a vice chair. At our last meeting, Sarah Copley was nominated to be vice chair. She was not there to accept or reject. So I don't think, Sarah, would you accept that appointment?
I would. I'm embarrassed. I ruined my perfect yearly attendance on the last meeting of the year. But and speaking to Jen, I just wanted to be clear that I'm going to be the vice chair so that we can restructure and understand our new bylaws and responsibilities to set ourselves up for electing a new chair.
Okay.
Right now.
Does that, I guess that requires a vote?
A motion, second, and a vote, and after that takes place, I have a couple of updates about membership. So,
Jennifer?
I'm sorry, can I just get clarity on what was just said? I guess I'm confused. Eileen, if this is your last meeting, wouldn't that mean we do need a chair, but we're only electing a vice chair? Can somebody speak to that just a little bit more? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so my initial conversation and following up after last month's meeting was to see if Sarah might be interested in serving as the chair, and Sarah made some efforts to see if that could happen. And because of the nature of her position, I don't want to speak for you, Sarah, but it was determined that it would be more appropriate for you to serve as a vice chair and a stand-in until we can figure out a new structure of membership, identify a permanent chair. And so we needed somebody to be able to run the business of the meetings. And in the existing bylaws, the only person that could do that would be either a vice chair or somebody, as Sarah did at a meeting some months ago when we didn't have a vice chair and Eileen was absent. We had to go through some special machinations at the front of the meeting to sort of appoint her as a one-off chair for that particular meeting. So she has graciously agreed to step into the vice chair's role as we rethink structure, membership, and so forth, and help us carry on the regular business of the committee. So.
Yes, and that's accurate. And just to my job here, the foundation was just concerned that as the chair, I would be directing more funds, and we have an equity initiative that when we're in leadership roles, that we don't exclude, particularly because we do invest a lot of funds in safe housing. So it's really just so that we can continue to work with the same partners and increase those partners, and not unintentionally weigh towards certain initiatives just because it's an issue of the HIAC. Does that make sense? So I can do the admin part, and I'd love, Jen, if you want to be the chair, I'm a great second. I'm really good at meeting minutes. I'm great at agendas, but I'd love to support a new chair.
Thank you for that clarity. I'm not sure if the question, I'm not interested in serving in as chair, but I appreciate the clarity around the vice chair comment and kind of getting us through the next couple of months as we have conversations around structure. So I wholeheartedly support Sarah as the vice chair.
Well, do we need a motion and a second and a vote, Madam Chair?
I believe we do need Joelle.
I motion Sarah Copley as the vice chair.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we had,
I didn't catch you. The second was.
Amy and I both said it, so.
I think it was David, yeah. Okay, I'm going to call the roll. I will call the names of the people who are here, and please vote yes or no. David Bartholomew?
Yes.
Okay. Sarah?
I don't think I can vote. Abstain.
Okay. Lance Crawford?
Yes.
Not, okay. Amy Hobson?
Yes.
Maggie Slocum?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Did Tim McElhinney ever come? David Nash?
Yes.
Joelle Steininger?
Yes.
Jennifer Teague?
Yes.
Okay, the motion has passed. And Sarah, you are our new vice chair. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you, Eileen. We'll miss you and your expertise.
Okay. Okay, maybe I'll come to public comment.
Well, I'll echo what Sarah just said. Eileen, you have you jumped in as chair on kind of short notice. You have served 3 years, through 2 of which involved a pandemic, and our committee had to get really busy with reviewing grant applications for an influx of several $1 million that was unexpected, and you helped us navigate those waters and just have provided consistent leadership and a steady hand for your term of service. And I just want to express my gratitude to you as the staff liaison, just for everything that you've done and your work in trying to better understand this issue. So I just thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. I certainly have learned a lot, and I have enjoyed meeting everybody and getting to work with everybody. It's been quite an experience, especially with COVID.
Yeah.
Well,
if I may, Madam Chair, I'd also like to speak to some of Jennifer's questions and make a proposal for how to move forward. We're past our, every 5 years by a regulation, we are required to look at how our continuum of care is structured, how the governance is structured, how appointments are made, a variety of different things. We're past due to do that. I made a presentation to the City Council's boards and commissions subcommittee a couple of weeks ago to talk about a proposal for restructure that would provide a way for more inclusive of the community, potential for representation on the governance board, and also to create that wider continuum of care sort of general membership that all other communities have that we've not had. It's been, this committee and the Homeless Coalition they're a loose but never formalized affiliation there. So creating that opportunity for general membership and restructuring how appointments get made. And so currently, with a 16-member body, City Council appoints 8, County Commissioners appoint 8, all political appointees. I think there's a wider variety of stakeholders in the community that ought to have a voice in who gets elected / appointed to serve on this body. And so creation of that larger continuum of care general membership would entitle them to elect from among themselves, which could include service providers, individuals. I'm particularly interested in seeing more individuals with lived experience of homelessness be involved in this. I'm particularly interested in seeing a greater a racial and ethnic diversity on this body, and just to have voices that have not often been heard at this particular table be able to participate in the discussions. There's so many things happening on this. So the presentation to the boards and committees just included a sort of a rough overview of what's been proposed. We're still in the process of fine-tuning new charter and bylaws and rules of procedure. As you may have noticed, we're down a couple of members, and so we have some attrition happening this year with people who terms, that they will have reached their 2-term limit, so opportunities for appointments. County Commission and City Council will still retain some appointment authority, but we really want to have that larger, wider group of stakeholders in the community that get a chance to elect people, from among the diversity of people involved in this issue, not necessarily on a formalized basis, but what's happening in the faith community, make sure that they're formally part of the discussions around this issue. So I would propose that we have a special called meeting, particularly on this issue, on the last Friday of February at our regular meeting time, and we'll disseminate much information to this group and have some discussion. And I'm happy to meet with any of you. I've already reached out to some of you individually and had some conversations, and had hoped to have more of those individual conversations prior to today's meeting. But the point of time count just takes up a lot of time. So happy to have individual conversations, and we can have a more a broader discussion about it on, I think it's February 24th. I don't have my calendar in front of me, but that would be my proposal for a called meeting in February on this issue.
Do we need to have a motion on that?
So the committee's call, but I think actually the chair or the vice chair have the capacity to call a meeting or cancel a meeting. So maybe Eileen and Sarah, I should let the two of you duke it out.
It's okay with me. I'm not coming.
Sarah, are you available on that date?
I am.
Okay. Okay, so we'll have a called meeting on February 28th to discuss the structural issues Brian has explained to us.
Yeah, it would actually be Friday, February 25th.
25th, okay.
Yes,
Friday, February 25th. And do we have any public comment? Is Christina still here?
Yes, I'm still here, Chair McMinn. We have received 2 written comments, but there are no, speakers in the speaker queue at this moment. How would you like for me to proceed with that?
Are they short enough for you to read?
Yes, they are.
Okay, well, could you just read them then?
Yes, of course. So the first comment is from Lee Matthews. This reads, the low barrier shelter experiment at the Ramada Inn has been a failure on many fronts. The deceptive way in which the city went about it had caused a significant lack of trust among many East Asheville residents. The vast majority of homeless are not capable of making good decisions due to severe drug addiction and or mental illness. Putting them in housing without mandatory treatment programs and mental health assistance will not work. Start putting the safety and welfare of the majority of the citizens here first. And that was sent over an hour ago. The second comment that we received was sent 15 minutes ago by Ann Craig. This reads, this presentation and the work that is happening is very encouraging. I'm very appreciative that our community is rising to this challenge. And that concludes all of the comments that have been received.
Thank you.
Christina, could you make sure that I get copies of those communications to include in the minutes?
You should.
Okay.
Yes, Brian, you should have those in your email, and it was sent both to you and Chair McMinn.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Christina.
Okay. If there is no additional business, we can adjourn.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair McMinn.
Thank you.
Farewell.
Thank you.
All right.